Welcome back to the Nullified Take channel where we've got the TNT takes for you on Survivor 42, Episode 2. I'm your host, Chris, and with me is my co host, Jake, and we're joined today by a special guest and a friend to the channel, Drew from the Angelcake Entertainment channel. Drew, you normally talk about the challenge, but I've had you on here every now and again to talk about other shows as well. And I think we might have spoken Survivor once before as well. How are you doing?
I'm doing well. I watched this episode twice, as you did, and I'm ready to talk about it and get into this season because I haven't talked about it with anybody. So,
Yeah,
yeah,
that's why
I'm
I'm
ready.
very excited to hear what you're thinking because you did like very short form videos, I believe, last season for a little bit and then you stopped doing it. I don't blame you, by the way. Survivor 41 was a hard watch.
Yeah, it was very different. Let's just throw that out there. It was very different with like pacing, editing, and then style wise as well. I
Mm.
mean, we got a lot going on from the backgrounds. Jeff's talking straight to the camera, and I feel like we're more equipped for that kind of style now. Well, coming into this season, but yeah, it's feels much different than the past seasons that we've gotten, the past 40 seasons that we've gotten on the show.
Yeah. Have you noticed a difference between the two seasons? Because obviously we've it's very early, so it's hard to judge because we're two episodes in. But have you noticed in the first two episodes that there is a little bit of a difference, maybe compared to how season 41 felt like in the beginning? Obviously, Jeff hasn't broken the fourth wall or spoken to the camera as much, and
Yeah.
and that hasn't happened. But I feel like there's a little bit of a different feel to it. Like, I mean, I feel like editing wise, it seems a lot more distributed right from the start here. I feel like I know more people compared to last season, and that they're focusing more on the human element at camp as well as the strategy. Because for me, one of the things, I'm not a big fan of Sequester. I know a lot of people love Sequester, but I feel like Sequester is all strategy and absolutely no social game. I don't see people just interacting and having fun, and that's why I watch the show. I love the characters. I love to see, like, I love the human moments that you get with something like strategy. But if it's all strategy or it's all human moments, then I don't like that. You have to have that balance, in my opinion. Do you agree that they're trying to make a little bit of a different, or give this season a different feel? Because to me, it's felt like it's almost like it's a little bit of a throwback, even though we know all the twists are going to be there.
Yeah, I think so. I think that we've definitely gotten to see more people and more highlight of their story and their story arcs than say the just the last season, the first two episodes. I feel like we've gotten to know more people. I am so happy that that Jeff isn't breaking the fourth wall as much. I felt like I don't know. I equated it to like Blue's Clues last season when he started up and it was like, "Hey guys, how you doing? I missed you. Oh, let's take a look over at this tree." And now it's like I loved how I will say that this is the one thing that I really felt like they really knocked out of the park was in the first episode when everybody was doing their things on their own like little areas, and then they got to the area where they had to untie the knots. They had to agree to get this advantage, and they had to take so long to get there.
Mm.
It felt good in the sense that this was a twist that we don't normally get to see, and it was handled well instead of like having to say a random weird quote about butterflies and broccoli, which we're still going to get this season. But I just like the way that they handled that way that we don't normally get that. And to me, I
Yeah.
think it's set up for something that could pay off really big later on in the season. So I think they got that right. And then I'm just waiting for for the one guy, I can't remember his name, to talk about soccer and
Yeah.
whenever somebody else finds another idle clue.
That
The
that was one of
potato
the
one,
funniest scenes.
no.
We'll definitely get into it a little bit later on. Just want to welcome the people here in the live stream. We've got the Hangout Room all the way from South Africa. You're crazy. 3 a.m. in the morning over there, and you're joining us. We thank you so much. The Hangout Room, at some point, Zoe, you guys will get to meet her. She'll be talking some Survivor South Africa with me pretty soon. Go check out her channel on YouTube as well. She does South African reality content as well. Dolores also here in the live stream saying hello. Dolores, welcome from Melbourne, Florida, I believe. So, yeah. So great start to this episode, Jake. We get back into seeing people starve and being so deprived of food, I guess. And Hay has to make a very difficult decision early on here. Will he stick to his beliefs, or will he compromise so he's got energy in this game and eat a crab? What did you think of this scene and overall Hay's decision to compromise a little bit here?
I don't blame him. I mean, I don't know how you do it being vegan. Like I love animals as much as anyone. Like my three dogs are like the people I hold most dear to me. But like, how can you not like eat a burger or like when it's right in front of you? Like, I just don't get it. But that's got to be really hard. And I know that it's probably even harder because I know a lot of vegetarians do eat. They don't eat meat, but they do eat seafood. But for him, he's vegan, so he doesn't eat anything like that. So like, I know Kimmy Kappenberg is vegetarian, but she did eat like the clams and stuff. So it was not really an issue for her. But for Hai, this is like way, way worse. So I don't blame him at all. I did think it was a really cool moment because we've never seen that before. I don't think we've ever had a vegan on the show that had to really like navigate this like moral dilemma. And I thought that was really cool. And I wasn't surprised that because you have to eat it. You have to. I mean, there's nothing else. Like I know on the blue camp, there's some like fruit, but like, what do they have? Well, you said coconuts.
Coconuts.
That's not gonna do. That's not gonna do it. So I don't blame him at all. It's got to be so hard.
Reality Realness, also here on the channel. Hello, Chantel. Always great to have you here. Go check out the Reality Realness channel. She does her own recaps on Survivor 42 as well. So subscribe there if you haven't done so already. And Hangout Room says, I never thought I'd see a vegan in Survivor. It's crazy. You may have forgotten that Inesu from Survivor South Africa last season was a vegan as well. But the big difference here, Drew, is that they've taken even the basic necessities away from them. They don't even have rice. They don't even have 1 cup of rice. I'm totally against this. I think it's overkill. Even with rice, they will lose weight out there regardless because they're not having sweets and things like that out there. But I want to see people with enough energy to give me good strategy and to give me good TV. Not everybody can be like Marianne and just have like endless amounts of energy all the time, even if they're starving, right? So what do you think of this dynamic that they've removed the rice and, Hayes' whole dilemma here in regards to, having to choose to eat or not eat? And from the start, Hay has been my winner pick prior to the season starting. I thought he had a very strong premiere episode, but I could see this episode he was struggling and his energy levels just wasn't there. He wasn't giving us much.
Yeah, so I think we've talked about it. It feels like what Survivor has done is take season, because it's not 39 days, it's 26 days. So for it to be only for like 3 weeks, 3.5 weeks, they're like, we got to go into overdrive and make this the hardest experience ever. So for 2 weeks, let's just take away all the food you could ever need or want, or normally we give them. And to me, I don't like it. I'm not a huge fan of it. I understand like this was a pretty interesting like dilemma for somebody to have to go through and try to have to think of, and they probably didn't think of this going into the game because I think he mentioned that, oh, I was going to get rice at least. But to me, I felt bad for him because you can see that this was really hindering him mentally, and he was like going back and forth so much to like have to like go against what you believe in and have to eat because you're going to like, you need to survive. I mean, there's some like really skinny guys on this season, and I felt like nervous when I saw them on this season, knowing that they're not going to get any food. Like the previous season, everybody was struggling, and to see a lot of the guys on here, and I'm just like, oh my gosh, they're going to be hurting. And seeing him hurt, not only physically, but like the mental drain it took for him to make that decision. And it's like, I don't want to see somebody have to like fold on their morals or their thoughts or their feelings or their beliefs just to survive. I mean, the game is hard enough as it is to try to have to like navigate through this game all the way to the end and to win it. But now you're also having to put this on his conscience now of like, I have to eat crab and I have to eat something that I pretty much sworn off that I'm not going to eat again. So it's like, I don't know, it just stinks.
I mean, at the end of the day, I think what this does prove, like, I mean, can you imagine having been a vegan and having these beliefs like back in the caveman days? Like, you wouldn't have had a choice. You would have just had to eat what's in front of you and you would have felt guilty and bad about it. But I mean, we're so privileged to live in a society where we can go down to the supermarket and get anything we want on a daily basis, and if we wanted to choose to live a certain lifestyle, we've got that privilege that our ancestors never had, and this takes us back to our primal instincts and needs out there. And I think this is what Jeff loves about the show so much, and why he loved Edge of Extinction, because apparently they were doing the same thing there. They were starving people, they were out there not getting anything. So he loves that aspect of Survivor. And I think he feels like this is a way to go back to old school Survivor, when they struggled and suffered and they had to. The one thing this does do, though, I will say, is that it now becomes more important for providers in the game again. So someone like Roxroy, for instance, Jake, I laughed at Roxroy in the beginning of the season when he said he was going to be the provider. He was going to be the person who was going to go out and fish and do all these extra things. He's got skills. And I said, this guy is out of his mind. This is like Survivor back in 2005. We've moved on so far from this game, and it's not going to help him. But I feel like a true Aussie or a true provider in the current format of Survivor will have a lot more power, and people will probably look at them and say, listen, at least this person is bringing in fish. At least this person is bringing in something to the camp. We have to keep them around for a little bit longer. Do you think this is going to change the meta of how the new school Survivor is going to be played? The fact that Rice is out of the question now, they've removed this from the game. Will people like that become more valuable again?
I definitely think so. If Rupert or Ozzy were on this season, they would be untouchable, because they are dying out there. Based on what we're hearing, they're saying this is the hardest season ever. I think that having someone like that would be so awesome for them, and they would just be loving it. They might not make it past the merge much, but like in these early stages, definitely, I think. And I don't remember who won the fishing gear, but we'll see. Maybe we're getting another Rupert. Maybe we're getting another person that's bringing in, like 10 fish every day. That's gonna give their tribe a huge advantage in the challenges too. So it'll be interesting to see. But it could very well change the meta of how modern Survivor is.
Yeah, well, I think it was quite funny in this episode to see the providers of this tribe, the Vati Green tribe, ended up being Chanel, and I believe it was Lydia who went out to go catch the crab. So it was Jenny. Sorry, it was
Jenny,
Chanel and Jenny who went out to catch the crab, and it's these two city girls. They're not used to going out there hunting. It reminded me of Natalie White in Samoa when she killed the rat, and they had food, and she's like, day one, I would have never done this, and you see these two people completely going out of their comfort zone, become the providers, because Chanel said she thought she was going to be in a tribe with people that could provide, but now she's got to be the provider out there. And I just found that hilarious. And also, when you look at the Ika Blue tribe, we hear right from the start here, Drew, that Tori was a little bit jealous that Zach went out first, and she said she loves this game. She wants to appreciate her time out there playing. But again, it shows how much they're struggling out there, that for a brief moment, she was willing to sacrifice her game, and she's a gamer. And that, to me, is a true testament of how tough this game is this season. But Tori does potentially have an in here, because we see Drea trying to form a girl alliance, an all-girl alliance, and we know how dangerous all-girl alliances can be in this game. What did you think of this move by Drea here, and especially, how Swati reacted to it? How do you think the girls in this tribe will do moving forward? Because it looks like they're not all on the same page.
I think you got to shoot your shot. I mean, we've seen from the very beginning that Drea is a gamer. Like, she is just going to go hard for any advantage at any point. She's going to risk her game to try to get ahead. And to me, I'm super excited to see where she can go or how far she can make it into the game. I think she is put into a bit of a predicament heading into next episode. If we take a look at like the previews to the next episode, it seems like all eyes are going to be on her for trying to start an alliance. But I think you have to shoot your shot, and it's kind of like, gosh, what is his name who found the idol? I really can't remember his name, but Mike. Yeah, Mike. Thank you. It's like Mike, when he read the front of the idol, he was like, I'm not going to regret. I can't regret it. Like, I'm not going to just sit around and just not take my shot when I can. And I think that you just got to do it. And if it comes back to bite you, I mean, so what? I mean, at least you tried, in my opinion. I mean, this is the kind of moments and steps that get you to maybe a second or third chance on Survivor if you come out and play hard and show that you have the skills. But it is her first season. But yeah, it just feels like there's not a lot of cohesion as much when it comes down to her like proposition. But I don't know. If I was Tori, I would be jumping on any and all propositions because they tried to make like a young people alliance the first episode, and then Zach is the first one out. So it's like, okay, you're down in your young people alliance. You're not the most well liked because you could have been that one on your way out instead of Zach. So I mean, I feel like we should all just try to make it work here. If Drea is wanting to work with you, you try to make it work with her, and you can't say no at a lot of the time on Survivor, or it just gets thrown back in your face.
Yeah, the Hangout Room says, I think the girls' club is easier to form than the boys' club. Well, I guess the boys' club is only Roxroy and Romeo at this stage within this specific tribe. But, you know, it was interesting last week when we had our discussion with Dino Paulo from Survivor South Africa. He was our guest last week. And myself and Jake came into the podcast. Jake was very high on Drea from the start. I was very low on her. And then by the end of it, we completely convinced each other to go the opposite way when we did our top three. And I ended up putting her in my top three, and Jake ended up taking her out of his top three. So we did a very good job at convincing each other to go the opposite direction. And the one thing that I will say about Drea is I enjoy Drea as a player. I want to see these types of players. Like we need people that are going to be able to go out there and try and make moves. I think she is a bit over aggressive and too obvious. Like, I mean, Swati knows that she's all over the place. If it comes out that she's been playing the boys against the girls and that she's potentially trying to be that swing vote in the middle, they could very easily, like you said, make the decision just to get rid of her because she's a bit of an unknown factor, but she's come to play hard. And when you look at Drea's profession, she's a business owner. She's got her own fitness industry that she does. Now, to be a business owner, you need to be a risk taker in life. So I think that Survivor amplifies who you are as a person, and you just become more of that when you're in a fight or flight situation. And this is how she would be in life. She would take risks to get great reward, and she's clearly been successful outside of Survivor. So she's bringing that mentality into the game. And to me, I love seeing it. I hope she survives. I hope she goes to the merge, because the longer Drea stays in this game, the bigger the possibility is that we get to see a very aggressive Tony Vlachos type of gameplay from a player such as Drea. And I think she wouldn't think twice about flipping in between alliances and doing different things. So it's quite interesting. But I did ask the question in the beginning of the live stream, who do we think is going to go first between Swati and Drea? Because I don't think that, I feel like we're seeing a Swati and Drea potentially going up against each other head to head. And so far, the votes are sitting at 57% of people are saying Swati is going to go before Drea. Drea's going to go at 29, and then they will find a way to work together. 14% is saying that. So that poll will remain open until the end of this podcast. So a lot of people are low on Swati, Jake. Are you low on Swati? Where do you sit on Swati? Because Swati seems to be someone, for a young girl in this game, she seems to be mature beyond her years. And like she seems to have the right makeup to be a player that could play well, but will she do well in a 6-person or 5-person tribe? That's the question here, not a normal 8 or 9-person tribe.
Yeah, coming into this season, I was a bit low on her. I don't know. I didn't think she was going to be as mature as she's been. But she's been great. She's been in a good spot, but I do agree with you that we might be in for like a little showdown between those two. And I don't know, the way it's being set up, I think we might be seeing Drea come out on top. And I don't know, we might see, it's kind of up to Tori now. Maybe she can go to Drea and be like, hey, Swati's like throwing your name out. And I feel like Roxroy and Romeo might be down to make something happen and take her out, because she's kind of sticks out like a sore thumb. She's the youngest on the tribe now that Zach is gone by quite a bit, and that might make her a bit of an outcast. But at the moment, I think she's probably okay, but really anything can happen at this point.
Yeah, it's tough to know. I think one of the things that for Swati has helped her, I mean, you don't go to the military at age of 19 and not learn to mature very quickly. So I feel like that skill has come in really handy for her in this game. And like, I feel like she's a very capable player, Drew, but do you think that a player like her that plays a little bit more passively and is a bit more of an observer. Do you think there's a bigger risk to a player like that in a small tribe like this? Because it kind of feels like the smaller the tribe, you need to be a little bit more aggressive in your gameplay, because people are going to look for anyone that they can latch onto and say, yes, we're with your plan. Like, you're at least putting a plan out there, because I don't see Swati putting names out there. I see her latching onto people, where Drea is more than willing to say, as long as it's not me, I'll go this way. And I feel like in a tribe this small, that game plan might not work as well as it would in a traditional season where you've got bigger tribes. Do you get what I'm saying? Do you feel like that could be the thing potentially between her and Swati that could be the difference? That urgency.
I think so. In the fact that if she's being passive, not only in gameplay, but in like the socializing and not connecting as much as say Drea is, who is putting herself out there. And I think she's having a lot of different conversations with a lot of different people on the tribe, despite it being very small. It could come back to get her. I mean, honestly, she didn't seem to like she was like really putting herself out there in the first episode. She really wanted to take a step back. And I think Drea has been able to really work on a lot through Roxroy and the older portion of the tribe. I think they went to the well first and they were like, let's lock this in kind of thing. And now it seems like Drea is also trying to make an all women's alliance so that she is that swing vote in the middle. My thing is, with such a small tribe, it's going to be hard to take out the quote unquote swing vote if you're worried about somebody else. So say they go to tribe next, and yeah, they're seeing that Drea's kind of like playing both sides or anything. Their best option, though, is to take out the other two and then deal with Drea later. And then if they stay in a tribe of 3 and go back to tribal council, okay, us two can gang up on the 1 at the tribal council kind of thing. Instead of, oh, we're going to take out Drea. Now it's 2v2. And now it's like, who's going to give up that one number to be the swing vote to take out the other person? And what kind of danger does that put you in? So I do think that if you're playing a passive game, both in social and strategical, that will put you in a very terrible position in a smaller tribe. And I think that Drea is just going to be able to, I don't know, she already has like 2 other advantages already. I think that she's feeling herself in this game. She's getting the rhythm, and I would put my money on her making it much farther in the game.
I love that observation you just made, because it's so true. Like, you need to focus on the other solid duo within that group, get rid of them. So use Drea, even though she's swinging back and forth, make it so that she wants to work with you, create that drama. Like, listen, the girls outed you. They told us about the girls alliance. They clearly don't want to work with you. We still want to work with you. Come over to us. And I feel like Drea is the kind of player, she will make decisions quickly and she will go against the girls if she knows that her name is being thrown out there. So I feel like that's what we're probably going to see happen in the next episode. And then my prediction is that Drea cuts Romeo and Roxroy in a hot minute. As soon as they get to the merge, as soon as they get to a swap, she will go wherever the power is. And we're going to see this crazy, volatile player out there that's just going to be doing whatever is needed to get further in the game. And I'm hoping that we're manifesting this right now and it comes into realization when we get deeper into the game, because that could be very exciting to watch. Now, I do want to move on to the Taku tribe here at the beginning, because we also get to learn a little bit more about the Taku tribe. We get to learn about the different relationships that people have got there. And we hear that the strongest relationship here is forming between someone that I was extremely low on coming into this season, Jonathan, and Omar. And it's funny because Jake had Omar very high. It might have even been your first or second. I think it was your second guy, Jake, in the picks. I had Jonathan as my last guy pick on my draft pick. And it wasn't anything in regards to, I didn't think the guy wasn't capable. I mean, if he came into the challenge, I would have probably had him very high because physically he looks like a beast coming into the season. I was very worried for him because I knew he would stand out. I knew people would look at him and say, you're the only young athletic guy, but big and strong, that looks like you can win everything on this season. I thought people would target him immediately, but I love Jake, his social awareness. I love, like, we get this scene here with him and Omar sitting, and Omar's trying to open a coconut and he's struggling to do it. And someone like Jonathan has got the ability to say, are you happy for me to show you how I'm doing it? And then you can try again. So he's not going to do it for him. He's not going to disrespect him in that way. He's socially aware enough to know that if you're trying to help someone, you try and teach them and let them figure it out themselves. And I feel like that is such a key thing that a lot of people in life would miss. And I think he is very, very socially aware. I'm very impressed with Jonathan at this stage. And I think him and Omar together is a very strong duo that's going to go very deep in this game. This could be the duo for the season. What do you think of this dynamic?
Yeah, you're going to see later on when we do our rankings, I'm extremely high on Jonathan at this point. At least, yeah, like this point in the game, I mean, he's rock solid. I don't think there's any chance that he's going home anytime soon, especially if they're following it up like last season with no tribe swap. I don't see any world where he's taken out. And I love the dynamic between he and Omar. I think that it's funny. I think Omar is seeing Jonathan as his meat shield. And I do think he recognizes in his confessional that he's also a brain shield for Jonathan. I honestly would see, if I were on that tribe, I think I might see Omar as more dangerous. So I think this is benefiting Jonathan a bit more. But I do really I think it works out pretty well for both. And right now, I think Jonathan is in an extremely good spot. I think he's extremely close with Omar and Lindsay. And he says he's really close with Marianne. There's a secret scene from last episode where it seems like he, Omar, and Marianne have kind of a trio going on. So he's set up really well, I think, at this time.
What's your thoughts on this dynamic here, Drew? Because it seems like one of the ones that we're going to have to keep our eyes on. And obviously, both Jonathan and Omar, they seem to be the tight two, but then Lindsay is also an add-on to that alliance from what we can see.
I love them. I love their pairing. I loved the moments that we got with them, both just talking about themselves on the tribe and just their bro time with each other, and then them talking about religion with each other. I thought it was a really great moment to have with them. And I love the idea that they have gravitated towards each other, even though it seems like the most odd coupling that you could do on any, you would think Jonathan would be more magnetic towards Lindsay. Maybe Omar would kind of be floating around there a little bit with Marianne. Maybe it would be Beauty versus the brains on the tribe lines. But Jonathan's friends with everybody. Everybody else really gets along with everybody else. Maybe Lindsay thinks that Marianne is a little bit too much, which I can agree. If I'm in a bad mood and hangry all the time, I'm not looking forward to somebody yelling and doing TV promos for CBS.
And if you don't want to lose a limb, right? You'd agree with that as well.
Yeah, exactly. But it's a great dynamic, and I loved it. I loved when Omar was oh, I'm gonna go pray, and then if you guys have any questions, and Jonathan was like, cool, yeah, I'll definitely ask, but if you have any questions, and then Lindsay piped in with her joke, which was really funny. So I just really like the dynamic on that tribe and how everybody is vibing with each other. I mean, sorry, Mariah, but I mean, I really like the four that are on this tribe and where they can go from here. I'm really hoping that they can win a few to stay out of tribal council for the rest of the season, because I just like the vibe that we get from this tribe.
Yeah. So quite a few people here saying, both the Hangout Room and Dolores saying that they weren't high on Jonathan preseason. They thought he was a bit full of himself, and they've changed their mind, softening up a little bit on him now. And I think what happens a lot of the times in these preseason things is that the production team sits there and they egg you on and they say, talk yourself up. Tell us why you're going to be the greatest player to ever play this game. No, give us a little bit more confidence, So they get them hyped up to say these things so that it sells. And that it sells the show in a way where people want to tune in to watch this guy. They're like, oh, this guy seems full of himself. He's going to get blindsided early on. I want to see that happening. And I fell for it as a diehard fan of Survivor that watches it season after season. I should know better. And I looked at it and I was like, I'm going to judge this guy based on his appearance. I'm going to judge him based on what he's saying in the preseason. And that's why I always find it so funny when people get so invested in the preseason, because most of the time you get invested into certain characters in the preseason and you're high or low on them. And then they go into the season and the exact opposite happens. And you're like, this is not the girl that we saw preseason. Now she's barely visible, And I think that's the funny thing, that we get fooled by these producers year in and year out, and we make harsh judgments before they even play the game. But I agree with you that my favorite moment in this episode was when Omar was out there and he needed to let his tribe know, listen, guys, I am a Muslim. Obviously, the Muslim belief is of such a level where you have to pray certain amounts of times a day, and he wasn't going to be able to hide it. So telling them about that and saying, I hope you guys can accept it. I'm going to have to go pray. I'm not looking for idols, joking around about that. I'm going to go do it out on the beach. And all of them being so accepting, all of them being open to saying, hey, we're happy to learn from you. If you want to know a bit about Christianity, we'll tell you. Lindsay saying she's a terrible Jew, which had me chuckling. And she's like, I probably wouldn't be able to tell you much about it. But still, it's just, this is how life should be. We should all be able to embrace each other's differences. And I find that today, if you say one thing, like, that someone doesn't agree with, you're immediately marked as someone that is a horrible person. Like, and if you look at your own families, like, there's certain things that my brother does where I'm like, you're an idiot. I think you're stupid for saying that. But I don't hate my brother because of this one thing. You know what I mean? Like, everybody is more complex to that. We've got more to us in life than just this one belief or this one thing that we do. So be tolerant, communicate with each other. And I think that you will find some great value in that. And they remind me of season 1. We always say Survivor was never open to different opinions and diversity. And yes, there was times where Survivor could have done better. But season 1, we had a gay man and a Navy SEAL get together, form an alliance, and go all the way. And you wouldn't have seen that coming. And that was a diversity in lifestyle and mindset. And we're seeing it play out still here in season 42. It's what got me into the show originally. It's what gets me watching the show right now still, is seeing people from all walks of life, people that should not get along, getting along because they know they've got a common goal to get through the game. So I'm loving it. I'm all in on the Taku tribe. They're my favorite tribe at the moment, but I'm super scared for them because they're 4 people in now, and they had to make a very difficult decision in this episode, choosing between Maria and Marianne on who they were going to vote out. And I've got to ask the question, Jake, do you think that they made the right decision here? If you had to be critical in voting out Mariah, which seemed to be someone that was very solid, potentially could have been loyal. She's got no hustle in her. She probably wouldn't have flipped on her alliance. But you've got Marianne, who's the opposite, who looks like she will be frantic. I mean, she searches for an idol just before tribal council because she feels unsafe. She feels to me more like a Drea type of character, someone that will go wherever the wind blows her. Do you think they made the right choice here?
It's hard to say. We'll see. But at this time, I do think that I was definitely shocked. And I think that it kind of comes back to Jonathan, honestly, because we see a couple confessionals by Omer and Lindsay saying, oh, Marianne, like, she's so sweet and we love her, but she's a bit too much. And we think that Mariah, we haven't really connected with her nearly as much as Marianne, but we trust her more. We think she's going to be more trustworthy going forward. But we don't see Jonathan weigh in on Mariah being more trustworthy. He has a confessional where he just says, and I love Marianne. He says that like a couple times. So honestly, I think Jonathan I think he made the decision. And I think he said, I want Marianne. I trust her and I like her. So for him, I mean, he got his way. But for Lindsay and Omer, I think that they would have maybe rather had Mariah. And, maybe Omer is going to be happy that he kept Marianne based on the preview for next episode. It seems like they kind of found an idol together or something, some sort of advantage. So that'll be fun to see. But in the moment, I think I definitely thought it was the wrong decision. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's an interesting observation because I feel like Jonathan was definitely the swing vote because you keep hearing him say, this is the person I'm closest with. And Jonathan is a bit of an oddball himself. Like, you can't put him in a box because he's this big muscly guy. He should be alpha. He should be a little bit more douchey, but he's not. Like, there's complexity to his character. He's a little bit goofy. He's very self-aware and the fact that he needs a brain shield, or he needs someone that, he says, Omar is funnier than me. I'm not funny. Like, he's very self-aware. And I feel like he connects with Marianne, and we haven't seen that relationship fully on our screens. Maybe that's something that will play a bigger role later on down the season. What did you think of this dynamic? And do you think that they potentially made a mistake here with leaving Marianne in the game? Do you think Marianne will stay loyal to these guys?
I think Marianne can be frantic, But when it's so early on in the game, I think they did go with connections, which I think that they will lean in heavily if, say, they go out and like get to a merge with her. They're going to lean heavily on like, hey, we were from the day one, we were together. Like, I think they're going to use her age and how young she is and what she's coming off as. Like, I think the way she's coming off is that they're perceiving it as nativity.
Yep,
Naivety.
naivety. Yeah.
Yeah. And I think that's where it's coming down to, where they're just like, oh, she's just happy to be here. And I feel like because she's so young, we can make that impression on her and get her to just latch on. Whereas maybe they didn't feel that way with Mariah. I mean, they were on the tribe with her the same as Marianne, but they just had that connection. Maybe it's because Marianne always is talking and always wants to talk, where Mariah is maybe a little bit more closed off or a little bit more quieter. So to me, I think they did go with bond. And I do think that because Jonathan said that he has gotten that connection with Marianne, that was the determining factor. And I'm sure if we go back and watch it, there was like talks about who they should vote for, and he probably pushed like, oh, she's so young, she's just going to be happy to be here. If we were to like be put on a different tribe with her, she would have to go with us. Like, she would just go with us no matter what, because we were there from the very beginning. So as long as we put in the time and effort and get to know her now, it'll probably pay off for us. Whereas Mariah, we don't even know what she's thinking, and we've been on the tribe with her for a couple of days. And who's to say she's not going to go off somewhere else with somebody else and not like us at all? So I do think that they went more with the connection, and possibly because she's younger, they think that she will be able to hold up in challenges as well. So I think that's also the thought process with bringing over Marianne. But she was a ball of energy.
I'm going to ask you a question about that in 1
gosh.
second. I'm going to ask you a question about that in 1 second, because I'm glad you're on the podcast here. There's a question that you would be best to answer in regards to Marianne. So brace yourself. It's coming. I do want to touch on Dolores' question here. Do you think Marianne perhaps found the beware advantage and we just haven't seen it yet? That could make her very powerful. And Dolores, yes, I think she could have found that beware advantage, because she would be the perfect person to have to say a silly phrase, and people wouldn't even think two things of it. They'd be like, yep, that sounds like a Marianne thing to do at the immunity challenge. That's just her being her. But I think that very much this is possible. They did that with Nasir last year, where none of us knew he had it, and then he said the phrase out of nowhere, and they showed us how he found it, which I thought was brilliant editing. It was great to break the mold and how they normally show us people finding idols and things like that in the game. So that could be one. But also want to acknowledge your reality. Realness saying, also Marianne's beloved. I don't know if they were ready to be so cutthroat and take her out. Jeff would be pissed, because Jeff loves her at the moment. She is great TV, like the Hangout Room says. Now, Drew, you're someone that loves the love shows, right? I normally give Reality Realness these questions, but she's not here on the channel today. But I do know you're someone that loves a little bit of Love Island. You watch Temptation Island. You're into a little bit of, is it Too Hot to Handle on Netflix? There's a few of those shows that you've watched in the past. So Marianne, what did you think of her whole trying to find romance here on the show and saying that she took too long to shoot her shot and potentially get a date with Zach, who was voted out first? Did you love seeing a little bit of love there on the island? It's been a while since we've seen this.
This is the quickest I think we've seen somebody fall in love on Survivor. I mean, I think she got like a quick shot of him, like eye shot at him of the like first couple of challenges. I mean, she's like, I took too long to shoot my shot, but it's like, you've been on the island for like a day and a half, it seems like. What are you talking about? That came out of nowhere, in my opinion. I was just like, wow, Jeff just gives her a line and she just takes it and runs with it, which is fun to see, because she does it like at camp, she does it at the challenge, and then she does it at Tribal Council, and she just steals the show wherever she's at, which I really, really appreciate.
Yeah, CD says keep hope alive. She might still be able to go on a date. I did see that Swati tweeted at Zach in the week to say, hey, would you do a double date with me and Marianne together? So Swati might be interested as well. We might have a love triangle that's going to come out of this whole thing after the season. But I thought it was hilarious. And again, it just shows you how much energy she has and how open she is about her feelings and everything out there at all times. So that's another thing. You might be able to see her coming. I don't know if she's got a game face. I don't know if she would be able to lie to you and not let you know what she's thinking or feeling when she's going to try and backstab you. So that might be something that Jonathan is appreciating in her and why he doesn't want to cut her this early. Now, I do want to move back to the Vati Green tribe because we did have a lot of action happen on this tribe here as well, because Mike goes out and looks for a beware advantage. He finds it, buries it, loses it. The quickest you've seen somebody lose an idol in the same time. But he makes a really interesting choice here, Jake, to tell two people about this advantage. The two people he trusts the most, Jenny, his closest alliance member, she seems rock solid. But he also goes and talks to Daniel, who looks like that was a big mistake. What did you think of this bit of gameplay here by Mike and telling people? He said he was aware that he shouldn't tell anybody about an advantage or an idol when he finds it, which I've been saying that for the longest period of time. You keep that for yourself if you can. But because he loses a vote, it has changed the dynamics. And what I'm really enjoying is seeing the same advantages this year being used in a very different way. What did you think of this bit of gameplay?
I disagree that you tell anyone. I still think you don't tell anyone because you haven't even gone to tribal yet. You haven't even lost the challenge yet. I think you maybe say something if you lose, and then you got to be like, okay, guys, people in my alliance, maybe you could try to make it seem like you just found it and then like, oh no, I lost my vote, like this just happened. But there's just no reason, because now it's just going to fester in people's heads. And then when you finally do lose, then it's going to be up for discussion. Maybe this is where we take them out. Maybe this is what we should do. So I disagree, but it's interesting because I believe last season, Nasir didn't tell anyone. Shan and Ricard knew with each other, but Xander told everyone, I think. Mm-hmm. So yeah, we're kind of seeing everyone last season kind of played a bit differently. And now, yeah, he's telling two different people from like two different kind of factions, which is a bit interesting.
Well, the interesting thing for me, let me tell you where I think the difference is coming, Jake, is that, yes, he's telling people about it, but you've got someone in Daniel using that information completely different to anybody else that we saw last season, where he's telling him, listen, don't activate it immediately. If you're smart, stay quiet about it, which I didn't even think of this last season. What if you just keep your mouth shut? Why give away the game that you've got the idol immediately? Wait for two other people to tell you and show you they've got the idol, and then you play it last minute. You say, I love soccer, whatever the phrase is that he needs to say, but keep it a secret until last minute. So I thought that was a very astute bit of awareness there from Daniel to say, keep it a secret. And also, even more so importantly, Drew, this gives Daniel a lot of power in the game right now, because he knows where the idol is. He knows who's got it. He's clearly got the trust of the person who's got the idol. Plus, he's nullified the threat of the idol because it's not activated yet. So he can choose to either let Mike activate it, or he can cut Mike before he even gets that opportunity, which puts the idol back in play so he can go and look for it and potentially get it. But more importantly, he's got that information on what phrases will be said, because from what we saw, Mike didn't show Jenny the actual idol and the phrases. Daniel actually saw the idol and the phrases. So he's actually got all of the power, like you said, without the risk of losing a vote.
Yeah, I completely agree with Jake here. You don't say anything. I mean, you just found it. Yes, you're freaking out about not having a vote, but you haven't even gone to the challenge yet. Like, you don't even know if this is a possibility that you'll be having to use your vote. I mean, you're still in a 6-person alliance. You don't know if that could be a complete, like, oh, we're just going to overhaul and it's going to be 5-1 anyways. Or it's just going to be a completely unanimous vote. You just don't say anything, especially if you lose your vote. You wait until you can't, unless you have somebody that you just know is ride or die with you. I mean, you can say it to one person if you know that you have them and they have you. But in my personal opinion, you don't know that yet. This is like day 3, day 4, whatever. Like, you don't know any of these people. You have not been put in a position where you're going to have to put your trust, or you put your trust in anybody. So I just think you don't do anything. You don't say anything until you really feel like you need to. But yeah, this is all on Daniel now. I mean, he could go to everybody if they lose the next tribal immunity challenge and they have to go to tribal council. He could be like, okay, he found the idol, he can't use it, but once he says like, oh, he found the idol, that's going to put everybody's head spinning, because then they're going to be like, well, he can use it if he knows that we can vote him. It's like, no, he can't. Look, it's not active, but we've never seen this before, so they're going to question what Daniel's trying to do, think it's like a slick move or something, and then it's going to put some backlash on him possibly. But yeah, I just didn't. You can tell like Mike is just reactive, and that's why he was like, I just got to go and hurry up and tell somebody about this, so if something goes wild and crazy, I'm covered. But I mean, you could have just done way more damage to your game than ever before. But I do
love
think
Mike.
that Mike is a little bit safe. I do think he is like safe. He's like Jonathan on that tribe. Everybody seems to like him, gravitate towards him, and I think he's solid, whether he has the idol active or not.
So Reality Realness says if someone can't vote, I would vote them out straight away. And for me, I kind of feel like what they did with Xavier last year was the right strategy. You don't have a risk yet until the idol is activated, I guess, in that tribe. Why don't you drag that person along 1 or 2 votes, which gives your side of the alliance more power, because they can't vote against your faction in any case. It's a high risk game, because as soon as the idol gets activated, then you potentially have an idol in the game and they can vote again. But I feel like if you've got the trust of the person and you can let them hold off from activating it as long as possible, you drag them 1 or 2 votes on, they're really just a passenger in the game. They don't have a say. They don't have the ability to change the course of direction of where the votes are going to go. But what I wanted to say was, I feel like this season, watching some of these twists for a second time around, it's weird. It's like I'm almost liking it more. Like I like the Beware advantage this season. I didn't like it last year. I was like, what is this thing? Why are we seeing this? This is dumb. I don't like the phrases. Now I like the phrases. I like the fact that Mike has to talk about soccer, which he keeps telling his football kids that it's not a sport, and now he's got to pretend to love it. I love that. I love that about this season. And then also the fact that with this Beware advantage right now, idols are really losing a lot of power in the game. Your social game actually is more important now. And if you look at last season, there weren't that many idols in the game. The only idols that actually hit the game last season were the Beware advantages, and they were all pre-merge, if I remember correctly. So there were a lot of other twists that happened that season. And Jake, you correct me if I'm wrong. I know you're the one with the memory that's a lot more onto it. I watch way too many reality TV shows to always get it right. But I feel like there was no idols after the merge. It was only the Beware advantages, and everybody knew where it was.
Yep, there was no idols that were found. I believe they did show the episode that Danny went home. They flashed to an idol that he walked by, but he didn't find it, and no one ended up finding it. So very interesting, because people seem to really complain that there are too many advantages, too many idols, which there's plenty of advantages to make up for the lack of idols, but people didn't seem to really kind of appreciate, oh, okay, there were only 3 idols last season. They were all pre-merge. But there could have been another one. So I think we're probably going to see that again, where there might be one more after the merge. But so far I do like the just starting out with 3.
Yeah. Do you guys think that we had Shipwreck Island this specific episode and we just didn't see it? Because I found it quite strange that they didn't have that in this episode, and I loved it, by the way, because it meant that we got to see more of the camp, we got to see more of the social dynamics, which is what I'm always interested in. Is why I hate whenever they take the show somewhere else, like a Redemption Island or a Edge of Extinction, because it takes away from the main game. But I feel like it's such a big part of this version of the show that most likely there must have been something that we didn't see, and we could potentially see it in a flashback. Or do you, Jake, do you remember, was there a Shipwreck Island every single episode before the merge last season? I feel like we had it almost every episode.
I don't know about every episode, but there definitely was one episode 2. I remember because Evie had 10 confessionals or something that episode. And I remember the first episode last season was well balanced. Everyone got a confessional. We kind of got to see everything. Then all went to crap. The very next episode, Evie stole the show. We didn't see anything from the Blue Tribe. And that's not what we're seeing this episode. So there is a chance that maybe there was Shipwreck Island again, but it just wasn't relevant to the overarching story. So they just decided to, toss it. Maybe no one got an advantage. Maybe they both decided to just protect their vote. Who knows? But definitely, if they chose consciously to say, okay, we're not going to do Shipwheel Island this episode, I love that, because it's only a 45-minute episode this time. You can do it in the first one because, okay, you got 2 hours. But this time, you want to keep that balance of showing the camp life of every tribe. And even without Shipwheel Island, you can't even do that. You can't show the camp life and the dynamics of all the tribes, everything that's going on. But without it, it just felt so refreshing. I loved it.
Yeah. Rainbot, first time I've seen you in the live here. Welcome to the live stream. He says, or she says, I feel like it's not the sharing of the advantages and the idols that shouldn't be done. I don't think the survivors should show the other ones the rules and stuff, though, because then they know everything. I agree. I mean, you can choose how much of the rules you want to see or show someone else in the game. So that's definitely something that's in your control. And by giving them all the information like Daniel has here, I feel like Mike is not the person that's in control. And Reality Realness and Chris Dixon also agrees that they don't like losing the vote in these small tribes. Voting is what bonds people and solidifies groups. It sucks that they don't get to play the game. And I've got a question for both of you, Jake and Drew. I'll start with you, Drew, first. We've seen the Beware advantage now in the game. We know what it's about. If you were to play Survivor 43 and you walk on the beach and you come across this little package saying Beware advantage, open it or leave it. Do you open it or do you leave it?
I will agree with Chantal from Reality Realness that I don't like that you can't vote. And knowing if they're going to keep this kind of pattern where you don't swap, like if I kind of had the idea that we could swap, I might be more apt to like pick it up thinking like, okay, maybe we could just keep going. Maybe I'll have a good tribe and we could just like steamroll this thing and hopefully somebody else finds some of the other idols. But with these small tribes and knowing that we're going to have to vote, the vote could be something big. I would maybe like go to my number one confidant and then try to like be like, oh, let's look around here for something or whatever. Like, let's pretend to talk and then maybe like usher them over to the Beware and maybe they can pick it up. And then if I need to, I can always use it as like, oh, well, we found it together, but that person has it. Let's throw him under the bus or them under the bus. That's, I think, what I would try to go towards instead of me picking it up nowadays. If they keep this kind of like vibes going in. Yeah.
You stole my strategy. I would have done exactly the same thing. Jake, how would you feel about the Beware advantage? Would you open that sucker or would you just leave it there?
Probably just leave it, honestly. I mean, last season we saw Erica win. She did have the hourglass twist, but is that really an advantage? I don't know. She didn't have any advantages. We saw Tony, of course. He had his idols and stuff. But he's Tony, so we're just gonna. He's not really he's not part of the pattern. He's an anomaly. And then we saw Tommy, notoriously won without any advantages, no idols. I'm done. 5 Mount 43. I say no. I'm done. I got my social game. I'll just stick with that. Because if you, it's just so hard to play it when idols. I think are a bit overrated because it's so hard to play them correctly. You really, really got to be good, like Russell and Tony, to play them to their best ability. I don't know if I'm.
Or Kelly Wentworth.
Kelly Wentworth. It's so hard to play them to their peak, and I just don't know if I could do that. So I'd probably just say, I'll just stick to my social game.
It would be difficult. I mean, I would leave that as sure as Francesca getting voted out first every single season that she plays. As sure as that, I would leave that Beware advantage the same way. I'd just be like, throw that thing, suck it to the side, get somebody else to come and search for it with me, like Drew said, throw them under the bus or control the info while you still have a vote. Because I think losing a vote is never worth an idol. It's just such a bad twist. I hated when they did it to Jamal and they screwed his game over one season as well. And then they just gone and continue to add to that. And it's interesting. It gives us something to talk about in the podcast. Now, as a player, I would absolutely freaking hate that if that happened to me. Before we move away here from the Vati tribe, the one player that was very quiet this episode, she had a very big first episode, was Lydia. I was very surprised for someone that's a big character like her to be as quiet as she was this episode. So I'm a little bit fearful for where this places Lydia. I've got no understanding of where her allegiance at the moment is. But in this tribe, we clearly know Mike and Jenny are tight. Daniel and Chanel, which I love that duo. Again, it's an odd couple. You wouldn't put Daniel and Chanel necessarily as the two people you would have thought going on the beach. These would be the two people that would get pretty tight, but they're a strong duo as well. And then Hey, I don't know where he is, or Hi, I don't know where he is at the moment and where he's fitting in, but there's a few people that have gone a little bit missing here. I think Lydia might have been the only one in this tribe that didn't get a single confessional this episode. They were, again, for a second episode, very good with giving a lot of people screen time. Australian Survivor, please take note. Do this on your season as well. We don't want to just see 2 or 3 people get screen time episode after episode. So that was interesting to see. But ultimately, they're going to do a challenge here. And I love the challenge because it's one that we've seen before. You have to go through a maze. You're blindfolded. You've got people shouting, directing you through it. I mean, obviously, Rocksroy hasn't seen much Survivor because he does not protect the crown jewels like you should when you're out there, and he gets a bit of a hit there, like I think Colby Donaldson did back in the original All-Stars. And when you saw him come back for Heroes versus Villains, he protected that in the same challenge very quickly. But I thought the interesting thing in the change to the dynamic here was that at the end, they had to complete a puzzle, and they had Jonathan as the puzzle builder and the communicator for their tribe. Not that it was an overly complicated puzzle, but did they not think this through, that they were going to have to do a puzzle at the end? They didn't know what it was going to look like. Drew, what went wrong here? Like, of all people in that tribe, why did they put Jonathan out there to be the person shouting out the directions and doing the puzzle? What did you think of the challenge?
First of all, the challenge is... This would be the worst challenge for me if I was on Survivor. I hate this challenge. Like, I would hate to be blindfolded. I know I'm going to smack my knees. I could possibly hit my face. I'm just like walking around, just blind, walking around tethered. Somebody's tethered to me, or I'm tethered to them. I'm fearful. I'm always fearful. I feel like I'm going to be walking out into the ocean. I don't know who I'm listening to, kind of thing. But I would just be freaked out during this whole challenge. But I don't know what, I guess because Jonathan's so big, they were just like, oh, he's going to have the biggest voice. He could just yell. He has a distinct voice. We can hear him, but I just don't think that they really fully talked it out. Maybe we were talking about Jonathan having kind of like the swing vote or the kind of the influence. What if he was the influence? He didn't want to be blindfolded. He didn't want to be walking around trying to put the puzzle together or listening. Maybe he was just like, okay, I'm going to step up. I'll do it. Maybe he was the first one to even say it after Jeff was like, well, you guys can talk and then we'll get everybody set up. And then he turned around and was like, I'm doing the talking kind of thing. Like, I have the bigger voice. I can do it. And he just decided to do it. And I don't think anybody would buck back at that. They would just be like, yeah, he's big. He's brooding. He can do it. Like, why not? I'll go in sawdust and I'll put the puzzle together. So I think that's what maybe the strategy was, or it came about.
Yeah. Chris here says Lydia was quiet in the episode because the editors were building up to y'all bitches moment, because in the challenge she said, come over here, y'all bitches. And it was really funny. That was like the only screen time she got the whole episode. And also over here, Chris said, and this is something I picked up, that Jonathan's voice sounded really different when he tried to shout. Seemed unnatural. Yeah, it was. He actually struggled to shout. Like, his voice was really deep. And I felt like the right thing to do is having someone with a very high pitched voice. Like, the most annoying voice should be the person who's out there shouting directions, and that will get through to you. You'd be like, oh, not that person again shouting at me, okay, I better listen.
Follow their directions to get them to shut up.
Exactly. Yeah, it would be like an extra motivating factor for you to get the challenge done quicker, because you just don't want to listen to them. It's like nails on a chalkboard, Any case, overall, it was funny because when they get to solving the puzzle, Jonathan's direction is, it's a pizza. That's what he's telling them when they're trying to put it together. So it's like the wrong person to be on the puzzle, but it was close. I will give him that. But ultimately, they're going to obviously lose this challenge here, and they're going to lose to the other two tribes. So they do go to tribal council, as we mentioned, and we end up with the result ultimately that Mariah is going to get voted out in this episode. So I do want to go into our draft picks here now and have a quick look at where we're sitting and who's losing. I haven't actually even looked at this yet. A person this week. This is our tribes here. So Mariah was your last pick on the board by the looks of it, Jake. So you do lose someone here. It's still very close between us. I feel very confident about my team at this point. Currently, Hai and Jenny, number 1 and 2 pick. Hai, my preseason favorite to win. Drea could go well or not so well at this moment. And I feel like Jonathan at this point is my blue chip stock. I bought him at the lowest value. Chantel, who's over here, who did the Challenge All Stars 1 draft picks with us, her last pick for that season won All Stars 1. And we won't tell you who that was, just in case you ever want to go watch that. So it can happen. We don't know anything prior to going into the season. So I'm feeling pretty good about that. Jake, who do you feel strong about currently in your side of the fence? Are you pretty happy with your team at this point?
Yeah, I am.
You could say the same for Omar, by the way. It's just so convenient. Both of them are right at the bottom, and they had great episodes.
Both of them. We were not. We discounted that orange tribe a lot. We
Big
did
time.
not. We went all in on the green tribe, which it's working out so far. But if they lose, obviously one of them's got to go, which is also sad because I just like all of them on that tribe. But I'm feeling good about my team as well. I like Daniel on my team. I think he's in a solid spot. Same with Chanel. I think those my top two I'm feeling good about. And honestly, just kind of everyone on my team. I think it's kind of hard to imagine what's going to happen next episode just because we have no idea, but it's hard to see any of my people going out at this point. So maybe you're underestimating me.
Yeah, I think I've got the high risk team, definitely. But you got to take high risks to get great reward. But as we're talking about this and we're starting to talk about the players that we, I guess, like at this stage in the game, I think it's appropriate we talk about who we think our top 3 players are for this week and why. And Jake, hopefully you've had some time to think about this. We'll start with you. You can tell us who you think is the third best player for this week and tell us why. And then Drew, you can do your third after that. And then I'll do my third and we'll continue to go around that. So give you a little bit of time to think about this. So Jake, who do you have in number 3 for this week?
Number 3, I have Daniel.
Why?
Well, we saw that he already kind of had a connection with Chanel, but it seems like that he's just playing this really well with the Beware advantage. First of all, Mike told him, which means that he must have had some sort of connection with him, which is good. Seems like he's kind of well integrated with the group. And the fact that he would tell him that is just a testament. And plus, he was able to come up with a good plan to just convince Mike, just don't say anything. And he's now kind of scheming behind his back with Chanel, just more solidifying that relationship. And seems like that Chanel really likes Daniel as her ally, that they play well with each other. And I just think he's in a solid spot, especially because we saw that his shoulder, that was kind of looking rough, but I think he's bounced back from it.
Yeah, I don't hate that choice. I might have Daniel in my top 3 as well. Drew, who do you have in your top 3?
I actually had Daniel as well. As my number 3. Yeah, I think for everything that Jake has said, I mean, he's in a very good position at this moment, and we haven't seen him. I don't think we've seen him like a lot during the first 2 episodes. Like, yeah, he got his shoulder pulled out, but I feel like we were seeing a lot more highlights of a lot of other players to the point where I don't know if we've seen like too much of one-on-one with him and Mike. Yet that's his second person he's telling about his idol. So Daniel has a good amount of position in this game. He's also sat out of the challenge. I just feel like there's no way he would have been in any danger or could be in any danger. I think he's playing a pretty solid social game and he's playing it from behind the scenes, in my opinion.
Okay, so I'm going to mix it slightly up. No, or do I do Daniel? Because Daniel's my second pick. I'll talk when I do my second pick. So a little bit of a sneak peek. He'll be number 2 for me this week, for much of the same reasons that you guys brought up as well. But looking at the person that I thought played the third best game this week, I'm going to start off with one of the 2 in the duos, and it's going to be Omar. For me, Omar is playing a very solid game at the moment. I like the fact that he is extremely open with his tribe and that he feels comfortable enough to let them know this is who I am as a person authentically, because that creates an additional trust with his tribe where they know that he is going to be upfront and honest about things. Like, for instance, I'm not looking for an idol. I'm going to go pray out here. People seem to respond very well to him, being very accepting of who he is as a person out there. And I think he's in a rock solid alliance with Jonathan and Lydia. He's not going anywhere anytime soon. I think Omar is going to continue to climb the ranks week in and week out. If Taku can find a way, funny enough, like Jake said, we thought they were going to be the worst tribe. They have got the least members at this point, but I mean, Jackson was it wasn't their fault that Jackson had to leave as early as he did.
Yeah.
So, at the end of the day, I'm very high on Omar. I think he's got great social skills, and I've got a feeling that this could be the tightest alliance that we see in any of the tribes if they do end up merging or swapping or whatever they're going to do. I feel like these guys are not going to break. Marianne, the jury is still out on her and where she's going to go, but again, we see it season after season, even this season in Australian Survivor. I know you're not watching that at the moment, Drew. The duo that's doing the best in the game have got very opposing strengths in the game, and they're just running it. JT and Stephen Fishback is another great example of Token Cheens, and this could be another JT and Stephen Fishback type of scenario where you've just got people that complement each other in different ways. That's going to work really well in this game. So powerful duos are very dangerous in this game, and he is one part of that powerful duo. So I've got him as my second as my third best player for this week. And we're going to go back to you, Jake, for number 2. Who's your number 2 this week?
I hate to stay within the ballpark, but I'm going to go with Omar. And pretty much for the same reasons you said. I mean, there's just not a lot that I can add. He's just in a really solid position. And I think that you're right that the duo with him and Jonathan could be the ride or die duo that we see this season. Oh, you're muted.
Sorry. Drew, how do you feel on your number 2 pick? Are you as high on Omar? Or are you even higher on him? Who do you have at number 2?
I actually have Omar as number 2 as well. I just felt like he is mitigating his risk level so much, yet he is such a dangerous player, but he is in such a good position. However, I think he would be in a better position once they make it past the merge. And I think he would, because he's so open and honest with everybody, I feel like that will gain him a lot more trust with other members outside of his own tribe. I think right now in this tribe, he is playing second fiddle to Jonathan, which I think he's fine with at this point. But when it comes down to who's going to be the bigger meat shield, it's going to be Jonathan if and when they make it to merge. I mean, I think Omar will be able to shine at that point, kind of like being able to like flap his own wings and be able to go off and do whatever he needs to do while also keeping Jonathan there. But with Jonathan being such a big strapping man, I think that that's going to be a huge beacon to everybody going like, we got to take out that dude before it's too late. And Omar could maybe like hide within the shadows of Jonathan while collecting the numbers. But still in this tribe, I think Omar is number 2 and playing a really solid game at this point.
Now, for the sake of being very boring and predictable, I'm going to choose your third place person, Daniel, as my number 2 for this week. And I was very impressed by Daniel. Like I said earlier, he had the whereabouts to take the same information that we saw other players get last season, but actually use it in a way where it benefits him and making Mike hold off from activating that idol, which means that Mike will have a no vote for a bit longer in the game. He quite rightfully said he might be the most powerful person at the moment in that tribe because he's got all of the information without losing a vote. And he does look like he is a part of a very solid alliance with Chanel. Chanel looks like someone that's not going to turn her back on him. They look very strong there. So I feel like they could be the odd duo that Omar and Jonathan is within their tribe. And we just haven't seen enough screen time. But what I'm really positive about is that even though this episode did not revolve around that tribe going to tribal council, we still saw his point of view, his strategy, his thinking, and also Chanel's point of view earlier in the episode, talking about being a provider, having to adapt, being a city girl, having to be adaptable, getting out there, and playing a different game from what she thought she would need to play. So I feel like both of them got strong edits this episode. If I could put Chanel somewhere in the top 4, I probably would squeeze her in there somewhere as well, because I feel like that's the other 2 people that we need to look out for this season so far. That blue tribe just seems all over the place. I don't know if they're going to be able to stay together and if they're completely going to crumble when they go into a merge or like a swap. But these 2 tribes to me seems like the 2 tribes, the green and the orange tribe. They're the 2 tribes that I think have got the power players at this stage. And I'm maybe a little bit higher on Daniel than what you guys were, because I saw him sort of drive a lot of the strategy in that tribe where Omar, I kind of felt like he was happy to sit back, which is not a bad strategy, like Drew said. in regards to letting Jonathan take the hits immediately. But if we're only judging it on this week, I think for me, Daniel has just pipped Omar in the top 3. So we're going to go back to you, Jake, for your number 1 pick of this week. And I feel like it might be a very predictable one, but let us know, who are you the highest on, and how shocked are you that you're the highest on this person in episode 2?
Yeah, I don't think there's going to be any surprises here. It's Jonathan. He's just in an incredible spot right now. I just think that he's just holding all the power. And like I mentioned earlier, I truly think that he made the final say. He had the final say on Mariah going home and keeping Marianne, because he liked Marianne better and trusted her more and wanted her to be in his alliance. And as I mentioned earlier, I just think there's a 0% chance that he's going home anytime soon. And he's just an incredible spot with Lindsay and Omer right at his side. I think they both think of him as their number 1, and that's just a great spot to be in. So there's just not a lot to say.
He lucked out
about his.
Yeah. He lucked out. Can you imagine if he ended up on a tribe with Drea? Like, I reckon that would have been.
I don't think they would get along too well. Yeah.
Yeah.
But there's really just not a lot to say that he's doing wrong at the moment.
Yeah. Drew, over to you for number 1. And are you gonna go off the most commonly traveled road, or are you gonna stick with our train of thought here?
So I will say that my number 1 pick is Jonathan for everything that Jake has said. I do want to throw this out there though, and we talked about some really good people or really good spotted people on the green and orange team. But I want to throw something over to the blue team. And I think somebody who is in a really good position that's kind of getting overlooked because we haven't seen too much of them in this past week's episode is Romeo. I think that Romeo is in a very, very good spot. He was able to connect with the younger group on his tribe. He was able to connect with the older folks. He's not on anybody's radar. I mean, Rocksroy was getting like death stares from some of his tribe. Zach went out. Tori was on the chopping block. Swati and Drea are kind of like are having their people's eyes on them as well. I think Romeo's in a very, very good spot, and I feel like he will be able to keep his threat level down a lot. So I just wanted to throw somebody else before we're always just talking about Jonathan here, that I think Romeo is being very underrated and kind of getting like, I don't know, the Erica edit this season where he's kind of like very low down, and hopefully we can see him, if he is going to go make it far, that we see him a lot more in the future edits. But I just think he's in a very, very good spot, and I think his social game is going to be huge if he makes it to merge and stuff.
Yeah, Chris agrees with you. He says Romeo is very underrated. And I think for those that are listening or watching this podcast, we just want to make it clear that this is who we thought played the best game this week. It's not who we think necessarily is going to win the game. Like, I still don't see Jonathan winning the game. If he does, hats off to him. But, I mean, the guy is a physical specimen, and at some point someone is going to want to take him out. Like, he's just too hard to ignore, So I feel like, let's finish the train of thought in regards to why he's my number 1. Everything that Jake said, plus the added very, very super weapon that he has in his arsenal is self-awareness. And I didn't think he had self-awareness coming into this game, but now that I've seen him play and being very mindful of how other people perceive him and not trying to be this alpha dominant guy, like when he helped Omar with doing the coconut thing, it's the small little social skills like that, and his ability to connect with people like Marianne, who probably, again, he would never connect with in real life, or you wouldn't think that they would run in the same circles, I think is what makes him a very dangerous player. Because we could very easily say he's a strategic threat, which he is, because he ran the episode in regards to who got cut. We could very easily say he's a physical specimen based off everything that he's done in the physical challenges so far and his bold and physique. But the one thing that gets overlooked a lot of the time is the social skills and the small subtlety, the soft skills when it comes to emotional intelligence. And he's got that. So he really is a triple threat. And if he can get deep into this game, Jonathan is a lock to come back and play this game again, like at some point. Like, I just think he's going to be a very big character where people were very low on him pre-season, and now they're probably turning around on him a little bit. But I also agree with you on Romeo. I'm very high on Romeo as well. I think he's very aware. He's got a good social game. I'm just really fearful for Romeo that everybody could crumble around him. So he's going to have to find a spot. Rocksroy is a little bit of a volatile character. I don't know. That could just get worse the more and more hungry he gets, out there. Drea's got, I think, no loyalty. I think she would cut him and Roxroy like she tried to do here in a hot minute if she can. And then Swati and Tori. I mean, Tori seems like a little bit of a super fan that is out there trying everything to play the game, but she's not really fitting in, and she's trying very hard. Apparently, there was a lot of talk online about Zach saying he really struggled to connect with Tori out there in the beginning because Tori was too much of a geek out there. Like she was like talking about things like, taking an arrow to the knee, which is like Elder Scrolls online game type of thing when something happened. And she was like throwing all these little like Spock signs for Star Trek and all these kind of things. And he's like, she's trying too hard. And I feel like that's coming across. Like Tori is trying so hard to connect with people and it's coming across as inauthentic. And that's why I don't know where she's going to go long term, but I feel like that's the hot mess tribe. I hope Romeo survives because he's a high caliber player in the train wreck tribe at this point. Is the way I see him, So any final thoughts before we start looking at finishing this podcast?
Chris, I hate to break it to you. I think those were jokes, those tweets by Zach.
Oh, it was the jokes. I didn't know.
Yeah. I think he was messing with Tori because she was like, "Oh, Swati and Zach, they're clearly nerds. So let me talk about Harry Potter." And
okay.
that will let me like bond with them. And so he's like trying to like, make it seem like the off camera she like went way overboard and was like saying all these other things. I don't think she actually said those things.
Okay, I was just gonna say because I did not expect her to like if she was that level of.
She must have done her reresearch on some nerdy things that.
Yeah, because I didn't even know half of the stuff. Like I was like, what is all this stuff? I need to look it up.
Yeah.
Theon says I can see Jonathan going out in an 8 to 7 if he wasn't so physically intimidating. It was going at challenges like Brett Klauser. He could slide by, but that's true. It's very true. But he's also got a strong alliance around him. So I feel like in that alliance, if they get to the merge, people are going to want to take him out as soon as they can. Chris, that is a joke. Yeah, I know. I should have done my research before I came on the podcast, and I was so proud on this take. It is the nullified take for a reason. Yeah, sometimes the take is.
I just nullified your take.
You did indeed. Guys, it's been great talking Survivor 42 with you as always. For those that are still in the live stream, please consider if you got to this point, you're a diehard listener to this podcast. Even if you're listening to it, I know the audio platform is growing quite a bit. Consider jumping on the YouTube channel, giving us a subscribe, giving us a like. Put a comment below. What did you agree with? What did you disagree with? Who's your top 3 players? We'd like to know all of these things. When we hit 500 subs and we're on our way there, we're going to get there, I believe, pretty soon. We're going to make Australian Survivor merge buff available as a giveaway. They've only made 100 of these ever, so they're quite rare. You can't easily buy them, and when they're out there, it's like $1,000. So even if you're not that fond of Australian Survivor, you could make some money off it, or have a very rare collector's item. And I will be doing it live on stream, so I can't game it. I can't give it to people, sadly, that have been with me from day one, just because I like them. I'll make it sure it's fair for everybody that's joined even late and subscribing, but that is going to become available at 500. When we hit 1,000 subs, I will be giving away to one person 5 merch buffs for season 1 to 5 of Survivor CBS, which is quite rare and difficult to find as well. So some giveaways up for grabs here. Join myself and Drew and Chantal tomorrow as we talk about the challenge CBS a little bit more so in regards to now that we know who the actual cast and the alternates are. There's been some changes to the info we had last week. So we'll be here to talk at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time about the challenge CBS. And also, if you're available at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I'll also have Aruna Natalia from The Amazing Race 33, and I'll be doing an interview with them. I'm really looking forward to them. They're massive super fans, and I'm sure they watch Survivor and a lot of the other CBS shows as well. So really looking forward to having a chat with them. Drew, what do you have going on over on the Angelcake Entertainment channel?
Over at Angelcake Entertainment, I'll be doing a podcast episode talking about the updates on the Challenge CBS, as well as talking about the workout videos that are becoming to YouTube via MTV Challenge YouTube channel. Also, I have a video coming out on Friday, this coming Friday, and then I have a big video coming out, or hopefully coming out next Monday. So look out for that. But that's pretty much all I have going on right now.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of challenge content dropping at the moment. So look forward to seeing that. And if any of you guys, if Chantel's still here, I'll make sure to put her link also in the description. You guys can go follow Reality Realness. She'll have her own take on Survivor 42 over there. I believe it's already up on the channel. Episode 2, if you guys want some more Survivor content, it's also in my recommended channels on this YouTube channel page as well. Jake, Drew, it's been great talking to you. Catch you guys next time. As always, guys, thanks and see you next time. Bye.